All right, so now let's look at the Vanguard Inflation Protected Securities Fund and compare that against the S&P 500. This will be interesting. Again, my premise, for the love of me, man, I don't know how people don't understand this, but okay, that's fine. My premise is I want to protect against a downside significant loss. So my man Al said, "How do you know REITs, real estate investment trusts, will do better than the S&P 500?" I have no idea, but doing better isn't what I'm shooting for necessarily. What I'm shooting for is to protect against a downside collapse of pretty significant proportions, because I think there's something gone awry in our state of the world here. And as such, I'm going to do a little bit more diversification to protect some of my downside. One guy, I forgot who his name, but he commented, he goes, real estate investment trusts are more volatile. There's more risk in there. Well, there wasn't in 2000, 2001, and 2. There just wasn't in terms of downside. And always remember, standard deviation is what everyone uses for risk, and I get that, but standard deviation has two sides of the coin. One's the downside and one's the upside. You really want the value at risk. That's a VAR. So you don't really care about the upside risk, because the upside risk is volatility. You just care. That's not the right one. Hold on a second. You just care about what's going to happen on the down. So if you look at a typical bell curve, here's the upside right here. No one cares about this. In fact, they'd love to get more on the upside. It's the downside that people care about, this side. And so what we're trying to do is to minimize the value at risk. And the way to do that is to have a non-correlated portfolio. And again, people say, well, and I get this, I've said it too, in a down market, everything's correlated, but that's really not true. I mean, it could be, but in the aughts, that wasn't true for real estate investment trusts relative to the S&P 500. It wasn't true for the value stocks relative to the S&P 500 until value stocks in 2002, and then again in 2008. But it wasn't true for real estate investment trust versus S&P 500 until 2008. So again, we've had a significant experience where non-correlated portfolios did just fine. Just look at the Wellington Fund, for example. So now in 2008, they all got killed. But you know what did not get killed? You know what did not get killed is government bonds. Will that mean they won't get killed going forward? I have no idea. We just use the past as hopefully a prelude to the future. I don't know. But there's always a black swan. What is the black swan that's coming around? I don't know. But I do know when the one thing you want to try to minimize is downside. And so you protect your backside the best you can. Hopefully you have no debt. Hopefully you're not spending like a drunken sailor. Hopefully you're not lighting cigars at $100 bills. Hopefully you have some cash. But you also want to make sure you have a diversified portfolio of somewhat non-correlated assets. So let's look at the Vanguard inflation protected securities. The first thing we're going to do is look in 2001 and 2. So 2001, it was up 7.61. Other in this category, which is what's the category? Category inflation protected bonds. So inflation protected bonds did great in 2000, 2001, and 2 when the S&P 500 was getting hammered. 2008 was down 4%, or this is down 2.85. Wow, all of 2.85. Not a big deal, man. And then it's right back up in 2009. All right, so we had a pretty bad year in 2013, down 9%. Was the S&P 500? We'll check that in a second. 2015 is down 1. So that was the worst year we ever had, 8.9% in 2013. Not anything to sink the ship, that's for sure. So since 2000, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 down years. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 down years. Just not anything that's all that event worthy, that's for sure. So let's do this compared to the S&P 500. Hold on just a second. So let's compare the S&P 500 to the Vanguard Inflation Protected Securities Fund, and we're going to go let's just right quick until right now, the end of May. All right, let's see what we got here. Now, and we're going to start with $100,000. We're not taking money out. We're just going to go back and see what we're looking at. All right, so basically, portfolio 1 is the inflation protected fund right here. So portfolio 1 did $100,000 in 2000, is worth $277,000 now. That's not so shabby. $100,000 in the S&P 500 is worth almost, not quite twice that, but significantly more than that, $464,000. So the S&P 500 advanced 460%, whereas the Treasuries advanced at 277%. but inflation was low. How could that happen? Interestingly, it took until right there, 2016, 16 years for the S&P 500 to actually beat the performance of the Treasury inflation, of the inflation protected securities. Look at that. That's nuts. So basically, just like I was saying about the REITs, over the last 5 years, the S&P 500 has had this nice run. That nice run. So if we take our trusty calculator, and we'll just say a more than typical bear market, but still pretty significant, 464 minus 35%, we'd be down to 301. So one bear market and these two things are even Steven. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, so let's go back now to, instead of 2000, what do we start here? 2000, yeah, start in 2001 when it started. Okay, so let's go back to 2000, and we'll do the last 10 years. 2009. We'll start 2009. All right, so 2009, S&P 500 smoked the Treasury. So since 2009, the S&P 500 is up 600%, where the Treasuries or the inflation bonds are only up 69%. So they got smoked over the last 10 years. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So let's go back to the last 5 years into 2016 and compare. And this is the whole point why I'm doing this exercise. Look at that. It's up 220. So we've only made $28,000 in inflation-protected securities in the last six years, and yet the S&P 500 has made $127,000 on a $100,000 investment. But look at that correlation, 0.24. That's pretty good. So let's do this. Let's do ticker symbol portfolio number 3. Okay, do this here. Hold on a second. We're going to do portfolio number 3. Oh, here we go. We're going to go BFINX. And we're going to do 50%. Yeah, PSX. And we're just going to put 50% into each. And we're going to rebalance annually. All right, cool. Let's see where that shook out. Right, smack down in the middle. All right, so if you had 2016, I said you have $100,000, it'd be worth $172,000 after 2000. After was that 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So, well, basically 5.5 years. You'd probably be okay with that. You'd probably be okay with that, and you would not have had that down market in 2020. The S&P 500 did. Look at that, man. You'd probably be okay with that. That's pretty good. So you were making 6.8 in 2021. 14.57 in 2020, 19% in 2019. You're down 3, up 12, up 8. That's not so bad, man. Now that's weird. The market correlation 97%, where yet we don't have that. It's not the same correlation there. Anyway, so let's go back to 2009. This is interesting here. 2009. So over the course of those 10 years, well, no, about 13 years, S&P 500 is at 592,000. We're at 327, which is about double that of the inflation adjusted of the inflation adjusted bonds. All right, well, let's go back to 2000. All right, this is going to be interesting. Again, we're rebalancing every year. Oh, look at that, man. So 2000. This is the inflation protected bonds, is at 277. This is the S&P 500 is at 464. And this is a 50-50 at 392. I'd take that. So now we're going to go 2000 to 2015. And let's go to 2000. Let's go to 2009. Oh, that's going to be, and let's see. Let's see what shook out best, shall we? So at the end of 2009, S&P 500 is right back to even. We made nothing at the end of, for those 10 years, made nothing. Start with 100, we ended with 100. The inflation adjusted bonds are at 181. The 50-50 is at 142. Yes, I mean, in my opinion, it's definitely not a bad way to go. And we got smoked. We got down 20% in 2008. That's interesting. Now let's take 5,000 a year out, shall we? We're gonna do cash flows. Withdraw fixed amount. We're gonna take 5,000 a year out, and we'll adjust it for inflation and see what we're shaking out as. S&P 500, you're down to 45%, 45,000. The split 50-50 is at 82,000, and the treasury inflation, the adjust is at 118. Let's go 2000 to 2021. We're taking 5,000 a year, and we're adjusting it with inflation. Not that you would have to do that in retirement, but we're going to use it anyway. S&P 500 is down to 32,000. And the double portfolio is at 88,000. That's exactly 98,000. So taking 5,000 a year adjusted for inflation, the 50-50 portfolio is at 88,000. Right back, almost even where you were after taking 5,000 a year adjusted for inflation. Portfolio Portfolio 3 is at 98,000. Excuse me, 98,000. Right back where you were. It's the inflation projected one's at 88,000. Look at that. S&P 500. So that's So look, the portfolio 50-50 rebalances at 98,000. S&P 500 is at 32, and inflation adjusted is at 88. All right. That is interesting, and that kind of goes back to my whole premise here, what I'm trying to accomplish here. Bear with me just a second here. Look at that. Over the last 10 years, 12, 13 years, S&P 500 taking 5,000 a year out is at 419. The bonds themselves are at 84, and the middle of the road with 50-50 is at 206. Yeah, that's that's the whole point right there. And if we go to at the end of 2016, no, we go to 2016. Right there. Yeah, look at that. Treasury, I mean, look, but even in 2000, man, see, that's what I'm talking about. You never got killed in the treasuries. You never did. Yeah, you didn't make any money, but you're still at 97,000 bucks. You start with 100, 97,000. S&P 500 is at 185 since 2016, taking 5% a year off, and the middle of the road is 136. All right, so my premise here, my point being is during a down cycle, the S&P 500, the down stocks, the aughts, the S&P 500 got crunched. During up cycle, the S&P 500 kicked butt and took names. Down cycle, the inflation protected securities did well. Up cycle, it basically stayed the course. You didn't write home about it, but you didn't get killed. You didn't lose money. You made a little bit, not much, but you didn't get killed. So if you're trying to swing for the fences and get gains at all costs, then the S&P 500 is absolutely the way to go if history repeats itself. And I don't think it will. I don't know. But as splitting of the difference in the middle of the road, your tips gave you some serious downside risk protection. And they didn't sacrifice a huge amount on the upside either, especially if you're taking money out, man. This mix right there of 50-50 did pretty well. Pretty well, if you do ask me. More into this later on, but because I want to look at VTI, or the VTSMX, the total stock index. But a 50-50 mix of treasury inflated protected securities with stocks, that's tough to beat. And again, bonds do well in deflation. Bonds can do okay in it depends on what you're doing. If you're buying a 20-year bond, you're going to get killed in inflation. I'm just telling you. If the bonds are rolling over all the time, you're going to do fine. Anyway, let's just real quick, let's just take another gander at this guy right here. So what did it do in 2000? I mean, look at it. 2008 is only down 2%, 3%. That's it. And we made money big time in the beginning of the aughts. Crazy. All right, let's just look at the holdings. It's all, excuse me. Duration 7.26. That's not bad. AAA. It's not really AAA. Is the U.S. government AAA now? I don't think they were. Then they got downgraded to AA. I don't think they're back up to AAA. But anyway, predominantly mostly government bonds, mortgage-backed securities, and things of that nature. U.S. Treasury notes, exactly. Average maturity 7 years. That's not anything significant. What's the risk on this guy? What do they say? Risk. Number of years up 16. Number of years down 4. Worst year down 9. Best year up 13. I'll take that. Let's go to a profile. Turnover, 48% turnover. So that means the bonds are being turned over quite a bit, which if inflation does kick in, you're not going to be locked into a long-term bond. But even these are inflation protected, so you're fine. And deflation, if it's deflation, inflation protected bonds aren't going to do great, but anything fixed income is a winning thing. It's fixed income when the prices are going down. Inflation protection income consists of investments in inflation index securities, U.S. government bonds, agencies, and corporations. Yeah. Expected maturity of 7 to 20 years. All right. Good stuff, man. Expense ratio is going to be low on this, I'm sure. Does it say expense ratio over here? I don't see it. Right there, 20 basis points. Can't beat that. Anyway, hope this helps. This is something I think you might want to pursue a little bit more focused on some downside risk protection. All right, we'll see you.